Welcome to the Dell Technologies Power2Protect podcast, where we discuss innovation and thought leadership in the data protection space.
Hello, and welcome to the first Data Protection Power2Protect podcast. I am Jennifer Aspesi, and with me is...
I'm Alex Almeida. And
Great.
We're here from the Data Protection Marketing team here at Dell Technologies.
We are.
Yeah. And Jen, it's been an interesting 2019 that we've left behind. Of course, we're in 2020 now. But a lot of good things going for us in terms of data protection and what's happened at Dell Technologies for data protection. What were some of those things that we covered in 2019?
It's been a really amazing year, I have to say. Not only did we update our software suite for Data Protection Suite, we also now have PowerProtect software, which combined with the launch of PowerProtect DD series appliances, as well as, back in April of 2019, we started with the X400, which is the first scalable solution.
Big at Dell Tech World.
And I know that in your space around cyber recovery and other areas, there's also been some movement.
Yeah, a lot of concern out there around the cyber threat space and how we recover from that. Going into 2020, and of course, as we talk about in the intro, this is a podcast that is meant to bring you topics and discussing innovation and thought leadership. That's not just going to come from us, right, Jen? We're going to bring in a lot of other folks from the industry out there, so you get that holistic view on what topics are top of mind in the data protection space. So going into 2020, what we're thinking, in the marketplace, we're going to see is a continued emphasis on cloud and how data protection takes place in cloud, of course, hybrid, public, all permutations of that. As well as cybersecurity from a cyber recovery perspective, but more importantly with what's at the center of why we're doing all of this, and that's the applications, the data. That's important, right? And high-value workloads is one of those things that we're going to continue. So for this first episode, we have our friend from the field, Doug Gavlick, right, Jen?
That's correct.
So he's going to cover for us a little bit. We had a good conversation with him about databases and how to go about protecting them and other issues out there facing folks out there protecting databases. So I think we'll go ahead and get to that interview.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Well, we're welcoming on this inaugural Data Protection podcast Field CTO Doug Gavlick. Doug, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You've been in the data protection space for a little while now, huh?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Alex. It's been quite a while. I've been doing data protection for, longer than I really like to count. But I've been with the whole data domain, Dell EMC solution now for coming on 12 years. I'll be celebrating my 12th anniversary next month. So I've been around since the inception of database protection. So that's been kind of a cool thing. I was around when we did the first release with Oracle, 7 years ago.
Wow. So Jen, we've just been celebrating some milestones here in data domain technology, haven't we?
We have. We just celebrated 10 years with data domain technologies, products, and solutions.
Wow.
So Doug's been here since day one, which is fantastic. Doug, can you just elaborate a little bit more on what is your main focus from a day-to-day point of view?
Yeah, so for the last 6 years, I've been at more of a global role and talking to our customers about database protection. Like I said, 7 years ago, we brought out DD Boost for Oracle. And then 6 years ago, we started all the other solutions with SQL and HANA and DB2. So I really focus on talking to our customers about doing things with application direct, getting away from the heavyweight agents that we typically see with the larger traditional backup applications, letting DBAs do their own work, but get the efficiencies and the return on the investment of the data domain stack using the DD Boost transport protocol.
That's fantastic. You mentioned DD Boost twice. I was wondering, we have a lot of differentiators from our competitors with our product and our technology. Can you just tell people who may or may not know what DD Boost is a little bit more about the technology and also any other additives you want to elaborate on?
Sure. At the end of the day, DD-Boost is really just a transport protocol that lets us do client-side deduplication and compression. So we took some of the really cool magic stuff that Data Domain does for deduplication and compression and moved it out to the edge. So we integrated small APIs for things like Oracle so that they're not moving all the data. We move less data, which gives us faster backups, which is one of the greatest things the DBAs love, um, and gets it to the data domain in the same format, right? So we can still have all that benefits of DD Boost and the full data set sitting on the DDs, but the clients aren't having to move as much data, so they get the benefits of faster backups and less resource contention.
You bring up some good points there, Doug, about specifically about the faster backups and not having to move all of the data. I think the biggest thing that from an industry perspective is that, backup, you want to move all of your data into your backup repository every night. And when you look about doing that, you try to get around the most efficient way. And there can be some complicated workflows that can come out of doing that. But if you do it internally with the transport protocol, you essentially make it straightforward where you're doing a full backup every night. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's some of the benefits I've seen with customers that once we show this to them, they're able to change their backup paradigm, right? So many times customers have always done traditional backups. They do a weekly full and daily differentials. That's just how they've always done things. But with us getting those faster backups, they can now switch to doing daily fulls. And with their transaction logs, they still get all their point in time recovery, but it simplifies the recovery chain when we do that. So they're able to do quicker point in time recoveries. And more importantly, it really helps them with customers that do report, have report servers that they repair. They ask me these restores, so getting rid of, the classic two-step dump and sweep process makes everybody's lives much easier. Everybody gets along better. And, at the end of the day, there's a lot less resources being consumed because we don't have all those rogue copies or, the third tertiary copy of a backup that the DBA thinks he needs. When he can go look at the data domain and say, hey, I got all these backups, I'm good. I don't need copies 2 and 3 and 4 to get their satisfaction or their confidence level.
That's really interesting. But I love this concept of the rift, and you anecdotally saying you are the marriage counselor. Things are getting easier, though. We talked about the anniversary of Data Domain. We just released the Power2Protect DD series appliances. But prior to that, Dell Technologies, we've been developing the Power2Protect software solution, and within it, the capabilities to do governance and compliance and also bridge that rift or bridge the gap between the DBA and the IT admin to start sharing the backup and restore responsibilities more elegantly with protection lifecycle management capabilities and reducing the workload stress and continuously improving the SLAs. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Power2Protect software and the reaction you're getting from your customers?
Yeah, so I think that's the key thing you hit on there, Jen, is Power2Protect really helps us start to bring called the guardrails into this mix, right? So when we give the DBA all this power to do their own backups and restores, sometimes we start to lose sight of, hey, are they doing the right thing for the company, right? We give them the tools to go do their own thing, but nobody's really been able to say, hey, are we really meeting the standards for a company? And that's where Power2Protect comes in. So when we start to show them that, hey, we can still let the DBAs do their own work, but let's just monitor and make sure that we're meeting the right retention levels. We've got the right number of copies in the right places, and we're replicating it to our DR site. We're sending long-term copies to the cloud and meeting all the compliance checkboxes that a corporation needs. And that's the beauty of Power2Protect. It's really going to give us the best of both worlds. DBAs still get to do their own thing transparently, but the business now knows that they're in compliance and that there's alerts going on. It's like, hey, we're missing an SLA on this database because we're not taking log backups or frequent enough, or we haven't been sending a copy to our long-term retention cloud to make sure that we've got a 3-year compliance copy around. So that's where I think PowerProtect is really going to be key. And the customers that I'm starting to show this to are love this messaging and think that this is the right vision for us to go forward with true data protection and getting away from traditional backup type of technologies.
Yeah, so it's interesting as we, you talk about traditional backup, right? And when we talk about in sort of the next generation of workflows, we start to think more like data management. And the idea is that, in these database worlds, you typically have the main data center that has all of the databases for all the corporations, and everybody's processing across that. And as we get into this multi-cloud world where data is now, edge, core, cloud, that sort of thing, you're going to start to see database instances, of course, not only in the main data centers, but pushed out towards the edge. And there's going to be, re-architecting from a DBA standpoint in terms of how these databases are interrelated and protected. How do you see PowerProtect really helping in that sort of scenario?
Well, yeah, so PowerProtect really gives us the granularity we haven't had before.
Mm-hmm.
With a traditional, DD Boost for enterprise apps, whether it's the Oracles or SQLs, we've had to create what we call shadow copies of these backups. And that was at a wholesale, what we call an entry level, right? Just this big directory structure that we can replicate from our primary site to our DR site. Well, that's all well and good, but it's all or nothing. And PowerProtect now gives us the ability to go down to an asset level, an individual database. So I can now say, hey, this is my production database. I need a copy here. I need a copy of my DR site, and I need to push a copy, to a cloud for some reason. So that's the nice part. We don't have to do everything in that storage unit. We can just now pick and choose at a very granular level of what needs to be sent where and adjust the retention levels specifically to that. And that's the other key thing we haven't been able to do in the past, is have differing retentions. PowerProtect gives us that fine-tuned ability to now meet the demands of what companies want for their protection of their databases.
All right, interesting. And specifically, when we talk about these cloud implementations in this multi-cloud world, we have capabilities like Cloud Tier and Cloud DR. How often are you having those cloud conversations with customers and of the data personas in the business today? Do you see them moving more and more data into the cloud? Any typical use case you can call out that kind of directly complements that end-to-end solutions for a DBA?
Yeah. So the database in the cloud is something that, maybe 6-9 months ago really wasn't a conversation we were having. Now, in the last 2 to 3 months, we're starting to see more of that conversation. I see it as 2 different use cases. One is what we call burst development. I'm seeing a lot of companies that are so thin on internal resources, they're hiring contractors to come in and do a quick development cycle. So they do this burst development, and instead of bringing hardware in-house to do this workload, they're just spinning up instances up in the cloud. So they're able to do that development work without having to invest in hardware. But they need database resources. They need a copy of today's production moved up into a cloud. So being able to replicate from a physical data domain up to a virtual data domain in the cloud, we're able to move that database up there. So lift and shift, if you will,
sure,
for quick development cycle. And that's one of the primary use cases I'm hearing a lot of customers use. And then secondly, we've got some very big customers in the real estate industry right now that are moving all their workloads to the cloud, and they're using the data domain replication for their databases to move that up into Google Cloud today. So they're moving from their physical on-prem workloads all to 100% Google Cloud solutions.
Wow, that's really great. Interestingly enough,